Unit 20 Citizenship. Contents: 20.1 Introduction, 20.2 Historical Perspective, 20.3 Definition, 20.4 Global Citizenship, 20.5 Dual Citizenship, 20.6 State and the Citizen, 20.7 Nation State and the Citizenship, 20.8 Rights and Duties of the Citizen, 20.9 Civil Society, 20.10 Multiculturalism and the Citizenship, 20.11 Conclusion, 20.12 Further Reading. Learning objectives. After reading this unit, you would be able to define global and dual citizenship, outline the rights and the duties as a citizen, describe the nation of civil liberty. 20.1 Introduction. Citizenship is one of the most commonly used terms in a democracy. It is used at all levels of politics, in formal legal documents, in laws, in constitutions, in party manifestos, and in speeches. But what is citizenship? Or who is a citizen? A citizen is not anyone who lives in a nation state. Among those who live in a nation state, there are citizens and aliens. A citizen is not just an inhabitant. He or she does not merely live in the territory of a state. A citizen is one who participates in the process of government. In a democratic society, there must be a two-way traffic between the citizens and the government. All governments demand certain duties from the citizens, but in turn, the state must also admit some demands of the citizens on itself. These are called rights. A citizen must have political rights. A person who is ruled by laws but who has no political rights is not a citizen. It is not possible to have citizens under all types of governments. Governments which are not democratic cannot, strictly speaking, have citizens. They have only rulers and subjects. In governments which are not democratic, people who live in the country often have only obligations towards the state and no rights. The government expects them to perform their duties, to pay taxes, to obey laws, to do whatever else the government wants of them. But they cannot question their rulers or ask them to explain their actions. Politics in these societies is like a one-way traffic. The government tells the people what to do and what not to do, but does not listen to them. Only the rulers have rights. The ruled or the subjects have duties laid down for them by the governors. Such undemocratic governments have been much more common than democratic ones. Feudal states were terribly undemocratic. There have been thoroughly undemocratic states in modern times too. Nazi Germany or fascist Italy are examples of the most brutal authoritarian state. So were the most colonial state. Democratic governments are not necessarily associated with the advanced industrial societies of the West. The British were reputed for their democratic system of governance, but they maintained the worst autocratic governments in their colonies. France is a democratic country but fought a savage colonial war in Algeria. Most colonial states practiced democracy at home but authoritarianism abroad. Industrial societies like Germany and Italy produced most brutal fascist governments during interwar period. Historically, the term citizenship was linked with the rise of democracy. The demand for democratic government came up first in the Western societies like England, France, and United States of America. Democracy means that everybody should have political rights. When one has political rights, the right to vote, the right to participate in deciding about important questions facing one's society, one is a citizen. Universal suffrage is a recent phenomenon. The ideas of democracy made people fight for their rights. Many of the ideas which democracy is made of were accepted after great revolutions. For instance, after the revolution of France became a republic, all citizens were made equal and have the same rights. The revolutionaries published a declaration of the rights of man. This became a symbol of democratic revolutions in Europe. Initially, very few people had the right to vote or stand for election, but people fought for the universal adult franchise. Finally, universal adult suffrage was accepted and everybody came to have the right to vote. The word citizens was made popular by the French Revolution in 1789. Later on, this word was used whenever democratic governments were constituted. At present, it is common usage to treat people in democratic societies as citizens. It means, above all, that in relation to his government, the individual is active, not simply passive. He does not only obey the listen to what the government says. The government must also listen to him in turn. He has the right to express his views freely, to be consulted and to be involved in the politics of his country. The citizens does not only enjoy rights, he also have some duties towards his country, society and fellow citizens. A citizen is a person who enjoys rights that the Constitution provides, and enjoyment of the rights also imposes some duties upon him. A good citizen is one who is conscious of his rights and duties. One essential thing for a democratic state is that the citizens must participate in the governing process. The quality of democratic improves if the citizens from all walks of life are participate in its activities, and if they take interest in the basic process of making important decisions for their society. Democracy implies that the decisions affecting the whole society should be taken as far as possible by the whole society. Participation of ordinary citizens makes the government more responsive, and the citizens are more responsible. Citizens' participation is the basis of responsible, limited, and constitutional government. Box 20.1 Idea of Citizenship. The idea of citizenship means that not only the government has some claim on citizen, the citizens too have some claims on the government. A government is an association like many other in society, but it is an association of a special kind, an association that one simply cannot escape or be indifferent about. Democrats rightly feels that since the government control the people, it is good the people must have some kind of control over the government. The best government is one which the largest number of people participate in making decisions, and for all society. This participation of ordinary people in precisely what is called citizenship. The idea of citizenship is closely linked to participation of the people in the government. This is how the ideas of democracy and the citizenship are linked to each other. 20.2 Historical perspective. In modern times, three major issues have dominated the world. First, the place of the church and various religions within the nation state. Second, the admission of lower strata, particularly the workers, to full potential and economic citizenship through universal suffrage and the right to bargain collectively. And third, the struggle for the equitable distribution of the national income among the people. The place of church in society was thought and resolved in most of the nations in the 18th and 19th century. The citizenship issue has also been solved in various ways. The United States and Britain gave the workers suffrage in the 19th century. In countries like Sweden, which resisted until the first part of 20th century, the struggle for citizenship became combined with the socialism as a political movement, thereby producing a revolutionary socialism. In other words, where the workers were denied both economic and political rights, their struggle for redistribution of income and status was superimposed on a revolutionary ideology. Where the economic and status struggle developed outside of this context, the ideology with which it was linked tended to be that of gradualist reform. The workers in Persia, for example, were denied free and equal suffrage until the revolution of 1918 and thereby clung to revolutionary Marxism. In southern Germany, where full citizen rights were granted in the late 19th century, reformist, democratic and non-revolutionary socialists were dominant. In France, the workers won the suffrage but were refused basic economic rights until after World War II. The workers have won their fight for full citizenship in the Western national states. Representatives of the lower strata are now part of the governing groups. The basic political issue of the Industrial Revolution, the incorporation of workers into the legitimate body politic, has been settled. The key domestic issue today is collectively bargaining over differences in the division of total product within the framework of welfare state. In the newly independent nations of Asia and Africa, the situation is somewhat different from the West nation state. In Western nations, the workers were faced with the problems of winning citizenship from the dominant aristocratic and business strata. In Asia and Africa, the long-term presence of colonial roots have identified conservative ideology and more well-to-do classes with subservience to colonialism, while leftist ideologies have been identified with nationalism. The trade unions and workers part of Asia and Africa have been a legitimate part to the political process from the beginning of the democratic system. 20.3 Definition. Since in antiquity, citizenship has been defined as a legal status for membership in a political community. Under Roman jurisprudence, citizenship came to mean someone free to act by law, free to ask and expect the law's protection. This legal status signified a special attachment between the individual and the political community. In general, it is entitled that the citizenship to whatever prerogatives and responsibilities that were attached to membership. With the creation of the modern state, citizenship came to signify certain quality with regard to the rights of the duties of a membership in the community. The modern state began to administer citizenship. It determines who gets citizenship, what the associate benefits are, and what rights and privileges it entails. As a legal status, citizenship may come to imply a unique, reciprocal, and unmediated relationship between the individual and the political community. Citizenship, in short, is nothing less than the right to have rights. Complete participation of the members in the activities of a territorial state is citizenship. The term implies a universal basis, either all adults or some general category of them. For instance, males or property holders are citizens. It is a predominantly Western concept, originating in Greece and Rome, currently in the small city-states in medieval Europe, then expanding enormously in capitalistic societies of the 19th and 20th century. Given a central place by the British sociologist T.H. Marshall in Citizenship and Social Class, an analysis of the development of class conflict in modern states, which is a combination of Marxian and Weberian insights. Capitalism increased the pervasiveness of class conflict in modern societies. Citizenship in the territorial state represented not its elimination but its institutionalization and the conversion of national into national states. In Britain, this occurred in three stages. 1. In the 18th century, civil citizenship, equality before the law, personal liberty, freedom of speech, thought and religion, the right to own property and make contracts. 2. In the 19th century, political citizenship, electoral and office holding rights. In the 20th century, social citizenship, a basic level of economic and social welfare, the welfare state, and full participation in national culture. Subsequent research has supported the general applicability of the model to advanced capitalistic nation states, through with many particular qualifications. Bendix in Nation Building and Citizenship attempted to apply the model to third world countries. In political and legal theory, citizenship refers to the rights and duties of the members of a nation, state, or city. In some historical context, a citizen was any member of a city that is an urban collectivity which was relatively immune from the demands of a monarch or state. In classical Greece, citizenship was limited to free men who had a right to participate in political debate because they contributed often through military service to the direct support of the city-state. Historians argue that citizenship has thus expanded with democratizations to include a wider definition of the citizen regardless of sex, age, or ethnicity. The concept was revived in the context of the modern state, notably during the French and American Revolution, and gradually identified more with rights than obligation in modern times. Citizenship refers to conventionally to the various organizations which institutionalize these rights in the welfare state. In sociology, recent theories of citizenship have drawn their inspiration from T.H. Marshall, who defined citizenship as status which is enjoyed by a person who is full member of a community. Citizenship has three components: civil, political, and social. Civil rights are necessary for individual freedoms and are institutionalized in the law courts. Political citizenship guarantees the right to participate in the exercise of political power in the community, either by voting or by holding political office. Social citizenship is the right to participate in an appropriate standard of living This right is embodied in the welfare and educational system of modern societies. The important features of Marshall's theory was his views that there was a permanent tensions or contradictions between the principles of citizenship and the operations of the capitalistic market. Capitalism inevitably involves inequalities between social classes, while citizenship involves some redistribution of resources because of rights which are shared equally by all. Marshall's theory has given rise to many disputes. Critics argue that it is a description of the English experience only. It is not a comparative analysis of citizenship. It has an evolutionary and teleological view of the inevitable expansion of citizenship and does not examine social processes which undermine citizenship. It does not address gender differences in experience of citizenship. It fails to address other types of citizenship, such as an economic citizenship, and it is not clear about the causes of expansion of citizenship. Some sociologists believe that the Marshall's argument can be rescued from these critics if the original theory is modified. There are very different traditions of citizenship in different societies. Active citizenship, which is based on the achievement of right through social struggle, is a very different from passive citizenship, which is handed around from above by the state. There are also very different theoretical approaches to understanding the structure of the public and private realm in conceptions of citizenship. For some sociologists, such as Talcott Parsons, the growth of citizenship is a measure of the modernization of society because it is based on values of universalism and achievement. These different theoretical traditions are primarily the product of two opposite views of citizenship. It is neither viewed as an aspect of bourgeois liberalization, in which case it involves a conservative view of social participation, or it is treated as a feature of radical democratic politics. It is either dismissed as a mere reforms of capitalism, or it is regarded as a fundamental plank of democracy. Recently, sociologists have gone beyond these traditional theories of democracy, liberalism, and civil society to ask questions about the changing relationships between individuals, communities, and state. In a world which is the nation state is increasingly subject to influences from supranational institutions, will globalization replace state citizenship with a truly universal conception of human rights? 20.4 Global Citizenship. Citizenship is an obsolete concept since it goes the nation state itself has become obsolete. In a globalized world where technology and the trade are creating transnational communities, global citizenship is the beginning of process that will obliterate boxed identities defined by blood and soil. This will not just expand our consciousness as citizens of the world, but also help us to hide our tensions that have been the product of ethnic and national histories. Nation states have a tendency to influence the course of history by imposing it on fraudulent and rivalries from the past. These impulses of history have been responsible for large-scale bloodshed. The Holocaust was a result of Nazi quest for a racially pure national identity. Similarly, state-sponsored mass murders have occurred in Balkans and Africa in the 20th century. The long-standing wars and border disputes all over the world, Palestine, Kashmir, Rwanda, Chechnya, are all the result of our inability to traverse the faultiness of regionalism, religion, and ethnicity. Citizenship has been the passport to partake in this dance macabre of violence. It does not offer one of the choices of identity, but imposes an identity that brings with it a history of prejudice and violence. Any measure that attempts to dilute the influence of a narrow national identity is welcome. Box 2.2 The Information Age. Marshall McLuhan predicted the global village in the 1960s that is now reality. A sociologist like Manuel Castells argues we are in the information age, aided by the flow of people and capital. New social networks are emerging. This seeks an image in a world without borders. Such a world is obviously too cosmopolitan to entertain constricted in vision of nationalism. What is needed today is the option to explore multiple identities without creating a hierarchy over them. Global citizenship endorses this view. It allows people to be stakeholders in the future of more than one country and culture. It takes us closer to the Upanishadic vision of Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. Entire world is a one family. 20.5 Dual Citizenship. Assimilation of a migrant community into this Adoptive society is not about giving up your own ethnic or cultural identity. Assimilation is all about making your host country more comfortable with you and you with it, to the mutual benefit of both. The concept of dual citizenship is an anachronism in today's globalized world. It is contrary to the process of assimilation of the migrant community into the host society. Those aspiring for it should show the parochial mindset. Such a mindset stands in the way of merging with the mainstream and results in social and cultural ghettoization. More importantly, it is something that is likely to be represented by the locals of the adoptive country and could lead to a backlash. Dual citizenship is also likely to cause heartburn among the local residents who might feel that the migrants are being rewarded for having deserted the homeland for greener pastures. In the context of India, the dual citizen gives the immigrant Indian the unfair advantages of having his cake and eating it too. Indians who migrate should accept all that goes with migration, especially those who left India after independence and who are the main beneficiary of the dual citizenship scheme of the government of India. Unlike indentured laborers, they are not forced to migrate. They are well educated, well off professionals who choose to go elsewhere because it was more comfortable and lucrative. Why then should they continue to seek a foothold in their country of origin? If it is in the business in which they are interested in, then why cannot they trade and invest like others foreigners? The truth is, dual citizenship is also about material benefit and convenience. It confers the right and ability to non-resident Indians to travel, study and work and buy property anywhere in India. There is no emotional attachment to homeland in it. 20.6 State and the Citizen. The state is an important political organization that exists within the society. However, it is not the only social organization. There are many other organizations which exist in a society. Example, family, religious, cultural, economic and another organization. All these organizations are established for the achievement of some consciously defined objectives and thus limited purpose. So the purpose for which the state stands are not all the purposes which make man seeks in society. All the organizations pursue their goals in different ways. The state pursues its objective mainly through law and the coercive force behind it, but that is the only one of the ways in which men strive to achieve their desired ends. There is no doubt, however, that the states play an exceedingly important and increasingly decisive role in the lives of the individuals. One of the reasons for its pursuit, in fact, is its universality. All the people in a traditional society come under the jurisdiction of the state. In their relationship with the state, they are known as citizens. Another reason for the predominant role of the state is in the lives of citizens is the expanding scope of its activities. Still, another reason is the use of coercive force, which only the states can employ in the pursuit of its objectiveness. The police and the defense forces are coercive structures of the state. Another is the bureaucracy, as well as organized army of government officials who is in their dealings with the citizens stand as an organs of authority. Because of its universality, the states dealing with the citizens become peculiarly impersonal, as expressed in the bureaucracy. Since the state includes all men, its representatives apply to all men without the many actual distinction of value system and separate interest. The same law applies to all. So, whatever policies of a government may pursue, there should be many citizens and groups of citizens who would be opposed to the existing laws and policies because they believe that a particular law or particular policy does not serve their interest but those of others. Sometimes a law may compel a person to do what his conscience forbid him to do and vice versa, and because the law is enforced by coercive power, the citizen may carry the impression that the state or the government is an external force denying them to the freedom and liberty which they value. There may be issues of morality, private sentiments, high social values or interest of mankind as a whole coming in conflict with the prescriptions of the state. Whenever the state extends its sphere of activity to hitherto excluded areas of social life, this may be regarded as an expropriating attempt by the stand, therefore resented and opposed. Thus, the issues of relationship between the state and the citizens have been matter of genuine concern and endless controversy. Reflections and Actions 2.1. Distinguish between state and citizens. In what way is each of the reflections of the reflection of the other? 2.7. Nation state and the citizenship. Of late, assertion of ethno-religious identities have emerged as a dominant global reality. This has in turn questioned the basic premises of the nation state, which was conceived as the most authentic expression of group life and also encompassing political community. The strong faith reposed in the idea of national state and citizenship as meaning of striking equality, protecting liberty and promoting fraternity among the people of diverse socio-economic groups stands shattered. The neutrality of the state and disjunction between ethnicity and the state is under question. The basic assumptions of the hyphenated concept of nation states are contested by the emergent global reality of ethno-national movements, assertion of minorities for their identity and rights, and the strong politics of identity and politics of representation. Now minority and the disadvantaged groups are demanding their space in the structure of governance. Autonomy and self-governing rights are major agenda of new social movement across the world. This has resulted into a compound ethnic conflict in different parts of the world. Nation state is Eurocentric construct and in many situations and conditions states has been conflated with the nations in their conceptualization. The conflation of state and nations have give rise to many wrong policies of the state towards its ethnic groups and minorities. The occurrences of the ethnic violence are not unconnected with the approach of the state towards the different ethnic groups. This is not confined only to the case of the developing world, which has been attempting to emulate the model of the West for building their own structure of state and society, but also in the development of world of the West, which has been regarded as the citadels of the idea of nation state. This politics of identity and ethnicity has emerged very forceful. The concept of nations and the state has been part of the grand narratives of modernity. Consequently, the project of a nation and state building in third world countries has not been congruent with the European experience, for the societies in these countries have been traditional and diverse. Multiple allegiances have not been coterminous with the loyalties to the nation state of the Western construct. Language and territory are the main basis of nation formation. There are strong tendencies to conflate state to a nation and state building as the national building. This conflation has given rise to a complete and compound columns of programs and policies of the state towards the ethnic groups. Religion cannot provide authentic basics of nation formation and nation identity. Therefore, any effort to espouse nationalism by invoking religious exclusively is not only alienating but also exclusionary. Any such effort in the past has not succeeded, and it is bound to fail in the future also. 20.8 Rights and Duties of Citizenship. Harold J. Lasky asserts that every state is known by its rights that it maintains. The state is not merely a sovereign organization which is entitled to the citizens' allegiance and which has the power to get it will abide. The citizens owes and normally renders allegiance to the state and carries out its command. However, the citizen does not render allegiance and obedience to the state merely for their own sake. On the contrary, he does so because of his conviction that the state exists and functions of the achievements of common welfare, which includes his own welfare. The citizen has its own obligation to state. At the same time, the state has an obligation towards the citizen, namely the obligations to provide and maintain those conditions and opportunities which facilitate the fullest development of his physical, mental and moral faculties. The citizen is entitled to these conditions and opportunities. In other words, they are his rights. Rights are closely related to duties. Rights implies duties. Rights and duties are two aspects of the same coin. Rights represent the man's claims on social, while duties indicate what he owes to society so as to be able to enjoy his rights. Thus, while society guarantees security as well as being the citizen owes the society the duty to make his contribution to the security and well-being of countries as well as a whole. In other words, the citizen owes to the society as much as he claims for it. His rights are not independent of society. He cannot act unsocially. There is a twofold relationship between rights and duties. In the first place, every right implies a corresponding duty. A right belongs to one individual imposes on other the duty to respect his right. His right, therefore, is their duty. In the second place, a right is not only a mean to be the individual's self-development, it is also a means to the promotion of general welfare. Every right of a citizen is accompanied by a duty that he should use it for the common good. Rights, valuable and indispensable as well as they are not absolute or unlimited. Rights and duties are correlative. As a citizen, man owes some obligations and duties to his fellow citizens and to society. He is universally recognized. In the case of rights, the obligations of citizenship are also equally applicable to all alike. 20.9 Civil Society. The term civil society was used by writers such as Locke and Rousseau to describe civil governments and differentiated from natural society or the state of nature. The Marxist concept derives from Hegel. In Hegel, civil or bourgeois society as the realm of individuals who have left the unity of the family to enter into an economic competition is contrasted with the state or political society. For Hegel, it is not only through the state that the universal interest can prevail, since he disagrees with Locke, Rowe and Adam Smith that there are many intimate relationships in civil society which will lead to the general good. Marx uses the concept of civil social society in his critiques of Hegel. Marx uses civil society in his early writing as a yardstick of the change from the feudal to the bourgeois society. Civil society arose, Marx insists, from the distinctions of medieval society. The previously individuals were part of many different societies such as gates or estates, each of which had a political role, so that there was no separate civil realm. As this partial socialization broke down, civil societies arose in which the individuals become all important. The only bond of privilege were replaced by the selfish needs of atomistic individuals separated from each other and from the community. The only link between them are provided by the law, which is not the product of their will and does not conform to their nature of what dominates human relationship because of the threat of punishment. The fragmented conflictual nature of civil society, which it properly relations necessary, is a type of politics which does not reflect this conflict but is abstracted and removed from it. The modern state is made necessary and at the same time limited by the characteristic of civil society. The fragmentation of misery of civil society escaped the control of the state, which is limited to formal negative activities and is rendered important by the conflict, which is the essence of economic life. The political identities of individuals as citizens in modern society is served from their civil identity and from their function in the productive sphere as tradesman, day labor or landowner. Box 20.3 Ideal of the state. In Marx's analysis, two divisions grow up simultaneously between individuals enclosed in their privacy and between the public and the private domains or between the state and society. Marx contrasts the idealism of universal interest and respected by the modern state and the abstractness of the concept of citizen who is immoral because he goes beyond his narrow interest with the materialism of the real sensuous man in civil society. The irony, according to Marx, is that in modern society the most universal and moral social purpose as embodied in the ideal of the states are at the services of human being. In a partial, desperate, depraved state of individual egotistic desires of economic necessity, it is in the sense that the essence of the modern state is to be found in the characteristic of civil society in economic relations. For the conflict of civil society to be truly suspended and for the full potential of human being to be realized, both civil society and its product political society must be abolished, necessitating a social as well as political revolutions to be liberated mankind. Although Gramsci continued to use the term to refers to the private and non-state sphere, including the economy, his picture of civil society is very different from that of Marx. It is not simply a sphere of individual needs but as organization and has a potential of rational self-regulation and freedom. Gramsci insisted on its complex organization as the assembly of organization cause of the pride that the hegemony of spontaneous consent are organized. He argues that any distinction between civil society and the state is only methodological, since even a policy of non-interventions like laissez-faire is established by the state itself. The metaphors he uses to describe the precise relationship between the state and civil society vary. A fully developed civil society is represented as a trench system able to resist the incursions of economic crisis and to protect the state. Whereas Marx insists on the separation between the state and the civil society, Gramsci emphasized the interrelationship between the two. The state, narrow conceived, and government is protected by the hegemony organized in civil society, while the coercive state apparatus fortifies the hegemony of the dominant class. Yet the state also has an ethical sphere, ethical function, as it strives to educate public opinion and to influence the economic sphere. In turn, the very concept of law must be extended. Gramsci suggests, since elements of customs and habit can exert a collective pressure to conform in civil society without coercion and sanctions. In any actual society, the lines of democratization between civil society and the state may be blurred, but Gramsci argues against any attempt to equate the identity to. And while he concept a role for the state in developing civil society, he warns against perpetuating statutory or state ownership. Gramsci redefines the withering away of the state in terms of full development of the self-regulating attributes of civil society. In Marx's writings, civil society is portrayed as the terrain of individual egoism. Gramsci refers as Hegel's discussion of the states and corporation as organizing elements which represent corporate interest in a collective way in civil society, and the role of the democracy and the legal system in regulating the civil society and connecting it to the state. A reading of the concept of civil society in both Marxist and non-Marxist thinkers leads to an examination of the concept of politics itself. It includes the relationship between individuals and the community, a view of society as organized or not, the delineations of public and private. Reflections and Action 20.2 distinguish between multiculturalism and pluralism in social culture. 20.10 Multiculturalism and the citizenship. The problem of multicultural accommodation is high on the global political agenda. According to refers to a wide range of state measures designated to facilitate identify groups, parties and norms. Due to the anti-ancient regime legal of standard concept of social citizenship, individuals' rights generally are portrayed over assertions of legal entitlement based on sub-national group affiliation. Thus, liberation, civic republican, and ethno-cultural methods memberships also share in a common base mistrust of identity group as a relevant component of citizenship theory. The term identity groups refers to a range of cultural, religious, and ethnic groups that are recognizable by virtue of their nomos. Identified groups are distinguishable by a unique state and collective memory, a distinct culture or set of social norms, customs and traditions, or perhaps an experience of maltreatment by mainstream society. Proponents of a multicultural understanding of citizenship are concerned with the power of the state and dominant social groups to erode identity groups. This concern derives from a philosophical position that stresses the role of culture in constituting a person's understanding of who they are and of their fundamental defined characteristic as a human being. Charles Taylor, in his famous essay The Politics of Recognition, argues that we, from our identities and our conceptions of ourselves as a free and equal agents through a dialogical process using certain given cultural script. Culture under this view is not way not just something that we use to understand and evaluate the world, and it also is a fundamental part of us. Membership is an identity group combined with active participation in its cultural expressions, and a distinction between the two blood ties can provide individual with an intelligible context of choice and a secure sense of identity and belongings. This emphasis on the lines among culture, identify and group members stands at the core of the quest for a new multicultural understanding of citizenship. Under this a new understanding, persons stand forth with their differences acknowledged and respected, and they are participated in the public sphere without shedding their distinctive identities. This approach departs from blindness to different ideals and aims to carve out a philosophical and legal rationale for recognizing identity groups as deserving of social or differentiated rights. The multicultural understanding of citizenship before depart from the perception of all citizenship as individuals who are merely members of larger public community. Instead, it views them as having equal rights as individuals while simultaneously meriting differentiated rights as members of identity groups, hence a legal terms. The move towards a cultural citizenship because model arises potential conflicts among three components: the identity group, the state, and the individual. 20.11 Conclusion. In this unit, we have discussed the various aspects of citizenship. The concept of citizenship has been defined in the legal and historical perspective. Its evolution have been delineated from Greek city-states to modern national state. Earlier it was a rare privilege or few. Now it is the legal political rights of every human being residing in a territory called state. Citizenship refers to the relationship between the individual and the state. Citizenship confers certain legal and political rights, and it is the duty of states to enforce, protect these rights. Now all the states citizens also have a certain duties towards their fellow beings, society, and the state. The concept of citizenship is closely linked to the concept of democracy. In non-democratic societies, we have subjects but no object, such citizens. Citizenship because means active participation of the people in the decision making and the process of governance. With the emergence of globalization, the concept of a national state has become obsolete, and with it the concept of citizenship has also lost its sheen. Now in place of state citizenship, there is a talk of global citizenship. Upanishad vision Vasudeva Kudumbakam is one of the verge of realization. There is also great demand of our dual citizenship in view of large scale migration population from one country to another. India has recently granted dual citizenship to people of Indian origin living in some countries. Modern society has been described as civil or bourgeois society by Marxist and non-Marxist thinkers. Civil society refers to the realm of private sphere and as an individual. The economic competitions and the independence of individual characterize civil society until the family and the other medieval association is absent in the civil society. Civil society has emerged from the destruction of medieval society. For non-Marxist thinkers, it is a rational system which ensures social welfare. Marxist thinkers, however, don't agree with their thesis. Contemporary society is a multicultural society characteristic by the diverse cultural, ethnic, religious, and linguistic groups. The multiculturalism aims to, according to the diverse identities groups, into a homogeneous society without endorsing their distinctive identity. Multiculturalism promotes unity in diversity and is opposed to assimilation of distinct identity groups. There exists a link among cultures, identify, and group membership. This is at the core of quest for a new multicultural understanding of citizenship. 20.12 Further readings: Citizenship and social class, nation building and citizenship and social theories, citizenship towards today, the contemporary relevance of T.H. Marshall, and the politics of recognition in army, government, education, multiculturalism, examining the politics of recognition. This is the end of the unit 20.